Hello lovelies and welcome to today's video. My name is Alya and I'm so glad you stopped by. Today we're talking about what do you do when your glasses stop working. There's lots of different things that can explain it, sometimes really simple, sometimes really complex, so stick around to hear about more. So what do you do when your glasses stop working? Because it's a really interesting topic. A lot of people come to me and say, oh, my optometrist couldn't get the glasses any better, and what do I do now? And what's wrong with my optometrist? What's wrong with the optician? Why can't they get my glasses better? They've not done their job, that sort of thing. I guess a general expectation is that glasses will always fix your eyes, and that's just simply not true. It's probably accurate for most young people. For most people, say up until about 60, I think that's a fair expectation, just being very general. I think that's a more or less fair expectation to want your glasses to do the whole job. And as long as everything's okay inside the eye, they more or less will, I guess, because at the end of the day, as long as the eye can receive light, and as long as that light can be absorbed into cells at the back of the eye, and as long as those cells can connect to nerves, and those nerves can send the message along the optic nerve, and as long as the brain or the cells dedicated to that optic nerve in the brain can receive the message along that nerve, interpret it and send it back out as sight, then sight can happen. And all that glasses do is basically make that light correct or less blurry or the right speed, in a sense. Because light, just all it is it travels through a bunch of different areas in the eye, and those little areas or those little organelles, all they do is they refract the light or bend it. They bend it in order for that light or that message to fall squarely or exactly onto those original cells that absorb it. If it doesn't fall exactly in this right place, you need to rely on your muscles to overcome that. And it gets to a point at around 40, 45 where the muscles can't always do that, and sometimes even earlier for those who wear glasses even earlier, like people who are short-sighted, for example. And yeah, as I said, the glasses will fix it. So I guess this is for those who have been wearing glasses their whole lives, and suddenly they're not working anymore, or the optometrist couldn't, or optician couldn't help their vision with glasses in the first place. Now sometimes it's just that the vision is so incorrect or needs so much bending that glasses aren't actually that effective. And that's the kind of people who have a very high or very plus or very minus correction. In that case, because glasses bend the light, they also then either minify or magnify the light as they go. So if you minify the light enough in order to correct it onto the right spot, onto the eye, what will happen eventually is it'll get so small that it's actually not effective. And most people who are short-sighted have adapted, like their brains have just adjusted to that fact and they can still see really well. But that's not true for everyone by far. For those people, I highly recommend trialing contact lenses. There are about 1 million different types of contact lenses these days. I'm exaggerating, of course, but there are 3 main types of contact lens material. There are 3 types of disposable contact lenses, in that there's dailies, fortnightlies and monthlies. Then there's also ortho-K, so there are those who then kind of act like a brace to the eye or change the shape of the eye. So you sleep in them and then you wake up and you can just use your regular eyes because the contact lenses have reshaped the eye overnight. There's hard contact lenses, although I very seldom would ever recommend them, and optometrists very rarely prescribe them unless there's a specific condition by which you need them. So there's options in the contact lens world. A lot of people try one type and give up. There's lots of different types, often in conjunction with lubricating drops. I would not give up after one if that's you. If you're the one who glasses actually don't make the vision better, they make it a little bit more difficult, then that's definitely an option. And I would explore, if your optometrist can't do it, try a second opinion. Honestly, it's at that point, because the options do definitely exist. But if it's not myopia and it's not just a refractive error, then you can't expect glasses to help. Or the other one that we have to definitely rule out is when we're talking about multifocals. You get to a certain age where, like I said, the muscles don't work, and you don't just need glasses to help you read. You also need glasses to help you see street signs and far away, or in the myopic sense, you're actually finding that you're taking the glasses off. Again, that's not the glasses' fault, it's just the stage that your eye is experiencing. Now, all those types of scenarios aside, if we look at specifically issues that occur with things that glasses cannot fix, and contact lenses cannot fix. So if somebody has an issue with that process where the eye cannot receive light, so the cornea and the lens, the front two organelles of the eye, front two bits of anatomy of the eye, are responsible for taking the light in and bending it really significantly. The lens in our eye is roughly 23 diopters. That's huge. Most of us are wearing like a plus or minus up to 2. That's the majority. You know, occasionally you get someone with like a +4 or a -6 or something like that, but that's less common. And more rarely you get somebody who's like up to like a -14 or something like that, but that's pretty rare. And then to have 23, and a lot of people have much more than that, and occasionally people have less than that. Power. If that lens wasn't there, we wouldn't be seeing very much. So it's really important that that lens is really, really healthy. And in front of that lens is a cornea. Now, not only does the cornea itself have to be super healthy, but also it needs to have really, really good lubrication. So a lot of the time, you get blurry vision, and especially if it's intermittent or comes and goes, you get blurry vision because of dry eye. Now, a lot of people who get dry eye don't actually feel like their eye is dry. It might just sting, or it might water. That's definitely much more common. You might find that it's just a little bit gluggy in the morning, or like you get a little bit of mucus or debris in the eye in the morning. You might find that your lids are very inflamed, or the eye often goes red, or sometimes it's itchy or stingy, things like that. That is all dry eye syndrome. So what I would do when someone says to me, oh, you know, my glasses sometimes work, they sometimes don't, and this is not clinically where I can't examine if their eye is dry. And even if it is in the clinic and I can examine whether the eye is dry, the eye might not be chronically dry. It might be occasionally dry. From fatigue, from dehydration, from poor omega-3 intake, or maybe just it's a reaction to the cold wind or the aircon or the heater or something like that. Or maybe that it's very intermittent, where something like an allergy gets in the way and causes the dryness, and then or irritation even. And then it goes away again, and then they come into the clinic and I cannot observe that. Because the eye is really good at healing itself, and if it's been a couple of days since the last episode, sometimes we don't get signs clinically, and it's just the way it goes. So if that sounds like you know, someone who normally can see but occasionally can't, I would highly recommend to start with high omega intake, of course, but also a very good preservative-free lubricant. You can get them in little vials, which have a really long shelf life, or you can get a little bottle that usually lasts up to 6 months when it's preservative-free. Both highly recommended. Either one will do the job. Sometimes you can get thinner ones, sometimes they can be more thick or more viscous. Sometimes you can even get a gel, whatever you prefer, as long as it's preservative free, and it fits into your lifestyle in the way that it needs to be in. Because if it doesn't fit in, you simply won't use it, you'll give up, and these are the type of things you do need to use sort of semi-regularly. I like to recommend that when you brush your teeth, you put in the drops. And if you find that you don't need them anymore, you can skip a couple of days, but then if you need them again, when you brush your teeth, you put in the drops. So twice a day tends to be the minimum prescription, in my opinion. Or you can just carry them in your glove box or handbag or something like that and use them occasionally, but that tends to get them lost and dirty and things like that. So it's better just to make it a routine thing, just like we put on moisturizer, just like we brush our teeth, put in eye drops. So when the cornea goes bad, it could be some sort of a degenerative disease. So if the lubricating drops aren't helping, you really do need to get your cornea and lens checked. The only real thing that can go wrong with the lens is cataract. There are occasional funny diseases and things, but most of the cases end up being cataracts, and that's a really, really simple, commonplace procedure. It can be a little bit expensive, it can be a little bit high-tech, but it's definitely very doable. And usually that happens well after 60. But there are occasional people who get cataracts younger. It's just genetics or sometimes lifestyle, and it just happens, and that's okay. You know, if you want to get a blood panel, if your doctor wants to give you a blood panel to explain why you've got a cataract a little bit earlier, that's not a bad idea, but they do happen, and sometimes for absolutely no reason. So just the way the eye formed, I guess. And that's okay. And sometimes people are born with cataracts and don't really know about them, and they start to grow a bit more rigorously as we get older, and that's sometimes what happens too. The next part of the eye is the vitreous. It's the big jelly blob in the middle of our eye that helps the eye form its shape when we're growing, and then eventually becomes a bit liqueform or a little bit loose and sort of not as dense and not as jelly-like. And that can create things like floaters. sometimes really big nasty floaters that really get in the way, sometimes many little tiny ones, because that jelly is made of collagen, water. There's definitely stuff that can be sticky in there, and when it becomes all loose and malformed, those little sticky bits can stick to each other and form clumps, and those clumps can float around and drive you nuts. It looks like a little fly is running around, or a little, in my case I've got one that kind of is at the bottom of my vision, and I occasionally think that something's running across the room like a rat or something, and it scares the poop out of me. But hey, I know it's what it is, and sometimes I have to ask my kids, did something just run across the room? No mum, it's your eye again. Yes, that's the one. So those are floaters, and they're annoying, but they don't normally destroy the vision. They normally just sort of, eventually, because they're clumps, they're heavy and they drown, and the brain's really good at deciphering what's real and what's not, so you tend to just eventually learn to ignore them, or they do just sink or drown inside the eye space, and they only come up in very specific situations. Like when I film these videos, I definitely see my floaters because I've got a really bright light over here, and it's very apparent with the bright light on my eyes. So things like that. But again, it's not really a condition where, or part of the eye where vision is often affected or glasses stop working. However, they can definitely get in the way, so it's just something to be very aware of, but just aware. And if they become very apparent, or they also cause flashing lights to your floaters, definitely get seen with eye drops in your eyes, because that can be a sign of retinal damage or retinal tearing. Now, retina, so that's where we really need a lot of health, a lot of high antioxidants in our diet to keep it healthy, or as healthy as possible. Wear your sunglasses, don't smoke, that sort of thing. Keep that part of your body healthy. It's probably the most complicated part of our body, except for the brain, the back of the eye. So it's extremely important that it works well. Things that can go wrong there are glaucoma, different types of pathologies, different types of degenerative diseases like macular degeneration, but that's usually age-related. You can get all kinds of genetic diseases there. You can get, because it's so complex, because we have nerves, we have arteries and veins, we have different types of things that gather there, like cholesterol. We have different types of cells, like amacrine cells, that interconnect between the nerves and the receptors. We have so much complexity in this tiny little 2mm organelle, that so much can actually go wrong. But usually it doesn't. Usually most people do get to keep good sight well into their old age, and it's really just a matter of getting someone to regularly check up on it, having a really nice balanced seasonal fresh diet, and staying away from the toxins, especially things like high UV exposure to the eyes, or on the other side of that is you don't want to be too vitamin D deficient, and you want to have a really great abundance of antioxidants in your diet, like green leafy vegetables, or maybe a supplement to help you along the way. If you live in cold climate, I would definitely recommend a D and a antioxidant supplement, because we just simply don't always have that available to us in our diets. I know that in the former USSR, in Russia and the adjacent countries, preserves are very, very commonplace. So, different types of jams and chutneys and pickles and things like that, because that was a way to get vitamins through the winter time. So anyway, something to reflect on. So yeah, if your glasses stop working, don't choke your optometrist, don't choke your optician. Sometimes that's all they can do for you. Definitely ask them about things like contact lenses, or ask them what other options there are. Encourage them to really check the back of your eye, because sometimes you do need a referral to a specialist. And sometimes, usually, there are things in place that they can at least preserve your vision, if not restore it. I hope you enjoyed today's video, my lovelies. I really enjoyed talking about this. Obviously, it's the thing I'm most crazy about. If you like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button. There's lots of different eye stuff on this channel. We also talk about tickles, we also talk about makeup, we talk about all kinds of fun stuff in my crazy little world. So definitely subscribe for more, and check out the videos in my catalog. They're all very nicely organized into categories, so definitely hit up the library there for more crazy things about my life. I always say I have a crazy life, but to see just how crazy it is, head over to Instagram and see all the different cute reels of the dogs and things like that as well. Definitely will bring a smile to your face, so head over there. And wherever you are, my lovelies, I hope you're having a tremendous day, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Bye.